Hello everyone, this is OddJob here. In today's video, I want to talk a little bit about gameplay theory. This is something that is completely made up, it's all speculation, but in order to actually talk about future gameplay theories that I would love to see in the game, we kind of have to build it on top of a foundation in order to talk about really cool elements that we might be able to see in Star Citizen. If you've ever played D&D or any type of role-playing game, you know that any type of really cool gameplay has to rely on some core fundamentals, and everything has to go back to those fundamentals in order to make the whole gameplay very cohesive. This is something that's just really fun to do because Star Citizen is such a huge video game in terms of its scope and size. Being able to speculate on the gameplay of this is just kind of fun and enjoyable as we wait for the game to be completed. So let's go ahead and dive into some gameplay theory. In this video, we're going to be talking about two different types of game modes. The names that I set for them aren't super great, but they're kind of descriptive. I call game mode 1 free will mode, and I call game mode 2 problem solver mode. So these are just descriptive names. They're not the greatest names in the world. Maybe you can help me figure out better names for them. But the first mode that we're talking about, which is free will mode, that's what we've been doing in Star Citizen all this time, which is basically a sandbox mode, which is us affecting the universe, which means we get to choose what we want to do. We can just kind of go explore, we can go blow up things, we can bounty hunt, we can sell and trade drugs, or we can just kind of free will explore. So basically, you are your own boss. You get to decide how to play as long as you continue to pay the bills like your insurance and maybe your NPC crew. You're going to be able to do anything you want within the mechanical limit. Obviously, there are game mechanics like the law system that's going to prevent you from doing certain things in certain areas, but for the most part, you can do what you want as long as you can get away with it. So we really know what this mode's all about, and CIG has been really good at kind of flushing out the explanation of this particular mode. The second mode is the one where it's a little bit squishy. We know it exists, but I'm going to go ahead and flush it out for my own purposes, which is what happens when you decide to work for an NPC organization. So specifically NPC organizations, not player organizations, because obviously if you work for a player organization, they're going to have their own goals and their own motives and their own storylines. This particular concept is about working for NPC organizations and what kind of storylines revolve around NPC organizations. So say you have a big ship, but you don't really want to just go out there and play by yourself. You can actually go ahead and sign up to accept missions from a corporation. What they're going to do is they're going to give you quests, but they're going to cover the insurance. They're basically, from what CIG has told us, it'll allow us to play the game but with a whole lot less risk so that we don't actually lose everything, but we also don't get a whole lot of reward for it, so it kind of balances out. So what I would call this is you're the problem solver player, which means that the world is affecting you. You're actually taking in quests because the world is changing. When the persistent universe has a problem and it needs to be solved, quests get generated and you get to go solve those problems. What's really interesting about this particular game mode is that it can be really set up like an RPG, in which case there can actually be a lot of stories based on the quests that are given. So here's an example of the two game modes working together. Say two large corporations, for some reason they don't agree, and they start a fight in a particular region of the universe, and of course they make a big mess of things. So a lot of communication arrays are down. The colony that was near the battle was also affected. Say that there was actually some ground combat, so there was a lot of destruction there. All of a sudden, because the players chose to have a fight, in other words, they had the free will to enter into combat, but it still made a mess of things in that particular region. All of a sudden there's going to be a lot of quests that pop up for that region. So we're going to need medical, we're going to need supplies, we're going to need salvage, and of course we're going to need reconstruction for that region. So all of these things start popping up. Now the mode 1 players, they get to choose on whether or not they want to go over there and help out, or they can choose not to help out because it's a little bit too risky and they can be off doing other things in other parts of the universe. They are completely allowed to choose whether or not to help out in that particular region, or maybe even just cause more trouble by flying over there and starting piracy and whatnot. How this affects the mode 2 people, or the problem solving players, is that all of a sudden you're going to start getting quests from your corporation that you signed on with to go fix that problem. Except for you don't really get to decide because you signed on with that corporation. These are the quests that you're going to be given, so you're off to do that quest. Where it can get very interesting for the mode 2 players is that these quests doesn't necessarily have to be very mundane quests. They can actually lead off to really important storyline side quests. Say for example, you are the owner of a whole sea and you decide to work for, a food supplier. So what's going to happen is that there are going to be quests generated to deliver food to that region to provide relief. So what's going to happen is that you're going to get a quest to pick up the food and deliver it to this region. As you were going to go deliver it to that region, you get attacked by pirates, your ship gets captured, and you get grounded. At this point, you and your crew, it could be other players or it could be a full NPC crew, you're going to be on a huge quest chain to go back, find your ship, and recapture your ship. Along the way in that quest chain, what you figure out is that the people that attacked your ship are refugees that are in bad need of food and supplies. At that particular juncture, you can choose to take the supplies, complete your quest, get a nice reward for repelling an attack, getting back your ships and your supplies, and completing your quest, or you can choose to leave the supply with the refugees, thereby saving them, more or less, and coming back to the quest line without your cargo, getting in big trouble with your corporation, and if your reputation with them is already bad, potentially you can get kicked out of your corporation. So these are the gameplay elements that I hope is going to be available for the mode 2 players, which is them working for a corporation and having really fleshed out storylines that give you like an RPG type atmosphere. This is something that I would love to see, and as example for myself, if I had one ship that I would fly around the universe in, it would most likely be the Banu Merchantman, and I would be playing that in free will mode. I would essentially be able to fly to any space that I want and be able to trade and just have my own fun. If mode 2 does exist, I would go ahead and own a ship like the Mercury Star Runner and work for, a corporation that might have very interesting storylines that I'm particularly interested in. And every corporation basically would have storylines that we kind of already know what they're going to be, but we get to actually be the ones that go ahead and problem solve all the way through it. Along the way, of course, if you have NPC crew, you're going to build a relationship with the NPC crew, and perhaps the NPC crew themselves would have side quests that you can do along the way, much like an RPG would. So this essentially would break Star Citizen into two types of gameplay, but they're very synergistic with each other. In other words, one set of player causes issues, the other set of players solves those issues because that's what they're designed to do. The real question here is how dynamic and how flexible the quest system is going to be in for CIG, and if they actually implement something like this, it's going to really attract a very diverse type of player base, which would be really great for the persistent universe. But for some of the ships that I want to talk about, I'm definitely going to be talking about them in both these game modes just because it's going to be a lot of fun. So I figured I'd at least flesh it out this much just so that people understand where I'm coming from. Anyways, that's all I have. If you have any questions, or if you want to add to this, or if you disagree with it, as long as you keep it civil, please leave in the comments below, and I'll talk to you in the next video.